Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams. Daniel, good to see you.
How are you this morning, Dr. Paul?
I'm doing very well, so let's talk about foreign policy.
Yes.
We've done that before. But there's some big changes coming, or at least the pretense of big changes. And unfortunately, I don't see them being beneficial because, just last week it was that the administration came out with a national defense strategy, and it's a big deal. What is the strategy? Somebody described this, well, it has nothing to do with defense and there's no strategy involved here. It probably has more to do with what Basovich says. He says that the national defense strategy has the Pentagon pumping champagne, So what's going on here? There is a military-industrial complex. I think you've heard of them, and they're happy. And the whole issue here is, what does this mean? Is this really a change? Obviously, there is some change coming, but the change is almost going back to the dark ages, going back to the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, and that is that we have to have an enemy, and guess what their argument is? We've run out of using this excuse that it's a terrorist. We have to go after terrorists because now they're sort of admitting that terrorism is sort of under control. I think the danger always exists there because of our foreign policy, but it has not been able to continue. We've spent $11 trillion on it. We've occupied many countries. Successes are essentially nil, and so they need to change their strategy in propaganda is what it is. It's how do we keep people excited in this country, either complacent or super patriotic and say anything they say for the military, make us safe and secure, has to go. And they come up with this policy. And unfortunately, I think this knocks down the administration from anybody who cares about the Constitution, peace and prosperity, and an American first foreign policy. It just emphasizes more intervention, more spending, more confrontation, less diplomacy. So I think this is a big deal in the sense that it's shifting gears. The one thing that might be helpful on this is that maybe this is a sign that they're running out of steam. They can't people are catching on. We're running out of money, and people know that a lot of this money is wasted. We're not having many victories. So they have to change the attitude to keep pumping up the people, to keep supporting this outlandish spending. I mean, $11 trillion didn't do much good. How many more trillions of dollars are they going to spend? So I'm annoyed a whole lot about this report because it's not like they haven't tried it before. They've tried it before and it hasn't worked, and they won't change. They keep doing the same thing. So this is a report that could be very significant historically. Just as it was historic with Nixon, opening up the door to talking with the Chinese, and Reagan. It's interesting that two Republicans and Reagan decided that we ought to talk to Gorbachev and have a reduction in nuclear armament. So these were big deals. So as the Cold War was fading, then we morphed into a war on terrorism. But here we are now at a new position that we have to change, the PR stunt. And right now the signal is very, very strong. More money from the military, and it's going to solve all our problems.
Yeah, and this was just released, the new National Defense Strategy for 2018. And, it really struck me. It says, non-state terrorism is no longer the biggest threat to U.S. security. Okay. It sort of reminds you of George Orwell's 1984, where they propagandized the public. We're at war with East Asia. We've never been not at war with East Asia. Then the next day, it's the opposite. My question when I read this is, well, what happened? How has that changed? 16 or 17 years, 18 years, terrorism was the number one threat. Everything was geared toward terrorism. A whole cottage industry developed in D.C., counterterrorism. So what has changed between, say, last November and right now that all of a sudden it's not a problem anymore?
Well, the one thing that hasn't changed is there's a lot of stupid policies that we have been following a long time. Before 9/11, they were ignoring the possibility of terrorism, and yet it existed because terrorism is a reflection of us looking for trouble, causing mischief, and getting people to hate our guts. And so they ignored it until we finally get hit, and then they take it and blow it way out of proportion and say the whole world has to be attacked. We have to go any place, anytime to stop this threat of terrorism. So that was underkill, then overkill, and now they say, well, we've conquered terrorism, and the people are supposed to applaud and say, well, they took a couple bucks from us, and we are, not living as well as we could have if we'd have had all this money spent at home instead of on weapons. So this is on again, off again. Now we're back to saying, well, terrorism has been conquered, and now they're going to say that what we have to do, who's going to be the target? The old Cold War was always mostly Russia, and the Soviets, the Soviet system. And now this report tells you exactly who we have to target. We have the Chinese. They're terrible people. They keep underselling us and making more money and having economic expansionism, and they're not wasting a lot of money on military. So we have China, we have Russia, and all the Russia Gate lying that's been going on. We have that. Those countries aren't spending anything like we are on military. Then, of course, back to the Iranians, we've hated them for a long time, so we have to continue to hate them because they might someday get a nuclear weapon. Well, the only motivation will be is if we stop, if we keep lying to them and say, well, you sign this treaty and we'll inspect and make sure you don't have it, then we'll get along with you. So we have to worry about them. Then, of course, the easy target is another easy target is North Korea. But it's interesting. The Koreans are looking like they're putting their foot down. That might be a very good sign. It might fit into my argument that maybe this is a sign that things aren't going well with the propaganda machine, and maybe they are worried about people getting concerned about this. Maybe they're shifting their gears to the Ron Paul Liberty Report and saying, right, hey, this foreign policy doesn't make any sense. So who knows exactly what it is, but I'll tell you one thing, there is a war machine out there that wants to be continuously fed, and so far they've been very successful for a long time.
And what we know now is that during the Cold War, the CIA vastly inflated Soviet military capabilities in order to justify increasingly higher defense and intelligence budgets. That's an absolute fact, and we know that. You mentioned about defense spending or military spending and how the U.S. spends in relation to our new old enemies. Well, we've told the story before on this show, but remember, President Trump wanted to ramp up the military spending for 2018. So he said, you know what, I want an extra $50 billion in that budget. And Congress said, oh yeah? Well, I'll give you that, and I'll give you another $50 billion. And he got two $50 billion increases. Well, that one $50 billion is the entire Russian military budget. Just that little bump up that Congress gave the president. But I think Basevich nails it in this piece, and it's in the American Conservative, and I encourage everyone to look at it. We have a little excerpt on our page, on the Ron Paul Institute page. But he basically says in the end, he said, this new strategy is only going to benefit the lobbyists, the military-industrial complex. And I thought, how well have they done so far? We actually have a graphic, not to pick on any one particular company, but this is the biggest defense contractor, Lockheed Martin. Check out their stocks since 2013. If you'd put $100 into Lockheed Martin back in 13, with all the wars you'd be making $300 on each share that you bought. So business is booming for the military-industrial complex, and I think with this new strategy, President Trump is saying, we're going to give you a shot of adrenaline.
And you know what? This is an economic argument, divorced from the foreign policy. And this is what the American people frequently buy into, and this is why all weapons are built in 50 states. Even if it's a single weapon, you share it around. Because of military Keynesianism. We criticize, or conservatives and libertarians rightfully criticize the left for saying, well, government has to, be the instrument of hiring and employment. But Keynesianism, the interference and the manipulation of economy, says that as long as you buy weapons, we've heard this thing, guys like Krugman said, It's just good to spend no matter what you spend it on because it's good for jobs. But they see this, and in a narrow sense, they have a point, but they're completely wrong. They say, well, if we're building the F-35 and we hire 20,000 people, they get this money and they buy and this goes around. But what they never ask is, what do you get for it? Do the planes work? Does it enhance the standard of living? Does somebody have a better house? Do they have a better education? Do they have better medical care? No, we have a weapon system that we give away to somebody else, so-called our enemies, like we're getting ready to give a bunch of helicopters to the Taliban, you know, this sort of thing. So they never ask the famous question from the law, instead of what? Yeah. You know, when you pay for something, this argument, this is good for jobs, it's narrow sense. It's good for profits for those corporations. And I can remember a significant argument we had one time on taking away benefits through the Export-Import Bank. Guess who were the strongest defenders? Labor unions and big business. I mean, they're in business together. But the average person, this money comes out of the system. Even if they don't get taxed, it comes out of the system. Even if it's debt, because the debt is passed on to a later generation to pay, or they immediately inflate it, print the money, then they have the inflation, the higher cost of living, which goes on the shoulders of the middle class and the poor. So military Keynesianism, they're not looking at it like us. We see it in both ways. Both that it doesn't make any military sense. They think, well, a lot of them will say, you know, with all the propaganda, when you think of the money we spend to propagandize the glorification of the military at football games, and then get involved in all the politics going on with the football season, you know, and the demonstrations there, they get propagandized, so they feel patriotic about it. It's good for jobs, and it's absolutely wrong, you know, for foreign policy. It's absolutely wrong for our safety and security. It's wrong for our financial system, and yet where is the resistance? I think most likely people will continue, and it's going to get a lot worse, and then they'll finally say, well, maybe they're right. Maybe we have spent too much money on the military. But I'd like to prevent those problems and say, back off, we don't need it. And the point you made is an important point. Who's spending the most money on militarization? You know, we are. And yet they wanted, and this says we're going to spend a lot more. So that's, to me, very discouraging. I find this report as a devastating report. And like I said, there's always a hopeful lining that says that maybe this is a sign that we're on the ropes and we have to reinvigorate the American public to support it. But I'm not sure how this will pan out.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, going into a little bit to the actual document, and it's not a long one. I mean, people can read it. It's not hard to read. This is a declassified version of the new defense strategy. But a couple of things struck me. It divides the world up into revisionist powers and rogue regimes. And these are our two big threats. On revisionist powers, our two main threats, as you pointed out earlier, are China and Russia. But here's something that got a laugh out of me, at least, and I'm sure it'll get a laugh out of you. The claim in the new strategy is that Russia and China are revisionist powers, and they are revisionist powers because they are seeking to turn the U.S. into an authoritarian state. And this, it's kind of ironic, this came out just days after the reauthorization of FISA Section 702, allowing the government to spy on all of us. I don't think we need Russia and China's help. We're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, and we have been for a long time. But you know, this whole thing, the symbolism and the reality of this document and the direction we're going, in many ways, for me, it was the conclusive evidence that our frustrations and our concerns have been borne out. And that is that all our hopes based on this administration, that with this whole idea that we would more mind our own business and stay out of these wars, Trump has in the past condemned these wars overseas, that there would be a change. And this to me indicates that I don't know where the individuals in the administration stand, especially even the president, but this paper is very, very clear. It is interventionist. It's big spendings. It's neocon efforts, and I just wonder who literally sits down and writes this stuff. But I think people who had been hopeful, including us, we'd been hopeful, and we always give a little nudge when we hear something that says, you know, let's have some common sense here. But I think that there can be no dependency on this administration to move it in the right direction. But I can say that about the last ones. We had some statistics I quoted yesterday that showed that Obama was worse than Trump. Of course, Trump's only been in a year. Yeah.
And worse than Bush for his
for that matter. But so I'm really disappointed with this. It's shifting gears. I think it's a bad sign, and it's not going to come from the people in office right now. And we don't know exactly how many everyday decisions made by orders of the deep state, but we know they have the influence. But what are we going to do about this? And the only thing I feel like we can do is try to inform the public and look at this in a different manner. And I have to go along with this and be optimistic because I'm convinced ideas do have consequences, and good ideas spread despite any regulations on speech and the whole works. And a good idea will spread in spite of government coercion and armies and all these other things. So I think that is the tool that we must use, but we can't be fooled in to believing that this administration is really going to be helpful for what we're talking about.
And you're right, ideas do matter and they are strong, but there are no new ideas in Washington. The idea that we're going to penetrate them with new ideas is a false one. It's a closed information loop in Washington, and the real danger is when they believe their own propaganda. And that's what happens more and more. And I'm just going to close with a couple of short things about Secretary Mattis, who's the one who introduced this new defense strategy. The defense strategy opens with him saying, "Today we're emerging from a period of strategic atrophy, as if we are not using the military. The military has been in continuous use for decades." And the other thing, this is a recent press conference, and it's up here on the screen. This is something that he talked about, you can't not laugh when you read it. He said, "The U.S. doesn't invade other countries. We settle things by the international rule of law. We have great respect for sovereignty, the sovereign decisions of other countries. This while the U.S. military is occupying Syrian territory without permission, going to war without permission, et cetera, et cetera." So the real danger is in Washington. They do not want to hear our ideas, but we have the power. We are the people, and we can break through. One final word. I want to remind everyone to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. The more you subscribe and have your friends subscribe, the more we can get the information out. It's free, and you get the information. So please hit that subscribe button.
Very good, Daniel, and I want to thank our audience for being with us today. And I want to close with a brief statement about the difference in foreign policy. Some people emphasize the tactical aspects of foreign policy, others strategic. We're more into the strategy, overall strategy of non-intervention versus intervention and domineering and militarism. And yet, frequently, I will make the statement that there's no contest whatsoever between the Republican and the Democratic Party and the deep state. But some people will say, "What do you mean? They're different. They're fighting all the time." They are. They're fighting over power and influence and who their best friends are and who gets the contract. But overall, the policies don't change. And when there is a serious debate on what to do, they might have a serious debate on the tactics. Should we put in 10,000 troops or 1,000 troops? Some of those tactical things that have little meaning when it comes to the importance of total strategy and the foreign policy that a country follows. And everybody knows that we advocate the whole position of non-interventionism. People say, "Well, we know what that is. That's isolationism, and you're going to put the walls around and nobody can come and nobody can trade," which I oppose strongly. And non-interventionism does not mean that. Non-intervention and militarism means that you still want to talk to people, trade with people, and travel the best you can to get along with people and talk before you start dropping bombs. And to also recognize that the use of sanctions, which we do wholesale all the time because we have been the wealthiest country, country is an act of war in many respects, and people are starting to think about that. It is like a blockade. If they put sanctions on us and blockaded us from getting certain substances or denied us access to banking system, believe me, we would galvanize the American people. We'd all be together and say, that's an act of war, they've attacked us. And yet we nonchalantly go along with this and let our administrations, Republicans and Democrats, use this tool of sanctions and drones and think, oh, we're not really at war. Not as many Americans are dying. But let me tell you, the conflicts exist from that type of policy. And the one thing we could do is set a standard for the world by developing a concise understanding of what non-intervention is. And it's mind our own business, have a strong national defense, practice freedom and liberty and a free marketplace. Believe me, if we do a good job, others will want to emulate us. That's a much better strategy than threatening everybody with a nuclear first strike if it becomes necessary. I, of course, vote for the non-interventionist foreign policy and believe if the American people truly understood, I believe they would vote for it as well. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report, and come back soon.